Why are mystery and crime stories so much easier to analyze than other stories on a technical level? Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to be taking a look at another chapter of Scene and Structure by, what's his name? Jack M. Bickham. Now, as I've told you, I've been going through this with my writing group, and recently we went over Chapter 9. This was talking about variations in the internal structure of scene and sequel. So basically, a scene is where you have a stated goal, and the person either achieves that goal or fails to achieve that goal. Most scenes in the story will be failure to achieve the goal because achieving the goal generally ends the story. A sequel is when the character kind of reacts emotionally to what happened in the scene. So the scene is a cause and effect set up, and the sequel is their reaction to the cause and the effect. So there's a set procedure to this, but like most forms of art, like poetry, like music, if you follow the rules too closely, too rigidly, it starts to get boring. And so you want to vary it up and you want to shake it up. And so Bickham goes over a list of ways that you can vary the scene. There's 5 ways of this. You can start your presentation other than at the classic and logical entering point, which is a statement of the goal. Most scenes starts with, someone saying, I want this, I want that. The Disney movies are a classic for this. Each princess has a desire as a goal song. 2 is you can end somewhere short of a fully pronounced disaster, because each scene leading up to the final scene has to end with what Bickham calls a disaster, or something that prevents them from achieving the goal, because if they achieve their goal, the story is over. So every scene leading up to the final scene must end in a setback that prevents them from achieving their goal. You can interrupt the scene virtually by having other action intervene. You can interrupt the conflict component by having the viewpoint character's internalization in response to the stimulus develop into a sequel in the middle of things. You can present the goal, conflict, disaster segments out of their natural order. Now, the exercise that we're doing in my writing group was we were going to discuss each of these 5 points, and there's another 5 for the sequel, and pull up thoughts for them. We were at no more than 3 of the initial examples. Examples from media that we had watched or read or consumed that applied for each of these examples, so to help us understand these variations better. And by the time we got to 3 of the 10 points, a pretty clear pattern had emerged. For most of us, the very first example we pulled up would be from a murder mystery or a crime show. And we started thinking about that. I started thinking about this. We laughed and went on, and then I pulled up an example from Pride and Prejudice. And so the writing group said, no, there's nothing wrong with all of us coming up with crime drama examples. But it got me thinking. We finished up, we reviewed all 10 points. It was a pretty good exercise. Strongly recommend. Chapter 9, Scene and Structure by Jack M. Bickham. And so I started thinking, was it just that someone first suggested a mystery as the first thing, and then all our brains float along that line after that? Or is there something inherent about murder mysteries and crime dramas that make them easier to break down at the scene and sequel level? And I really think that there is. I think take your classic Agatha Christie or Sherlock Holmes murder mystery. These are usually very short stories. Agatha Christie's, her full-length novels, not just her short stories, but her novels probably average somewhere around 30,000 words. And that barely qualifies as a novella. In most books, if you want to publish them as a full-length novel and not as a novella, you want to be at least over 60,000 words. So Agatha Christie stories were half the length of a standard modern novel, let alone the massive beasts that they'd have back in the day. And Sherlock Holmes pretty much only wrote short stories. So less than 25,000 words. So I think the classic format of your murder mystery is going to be more streamlined, more bare bones. A romance wants to evoke a certain sensation. A fantasy world has to do a lot of world building. But most murder mysteries are set in the modern world. Therefore, you can make certain assumptions. The description of a scene, all you have to say is, and then the hero walked into a seedy nightclub. And we all probably have a mental image of what that is. Or they give one detail. The air was thick with cigar smoke. Or the library was hushed and dim. Because it's the modern world, because it's the modern setting, we all have at least some idea of what we think this place is like that the author can assume and build off of. So you strip out tons of necessary world building. So these murder mysteries don't need to be as verbally complex, but also they can't be as verbally complex because in the murder mystery, the Chekhov's gun rule becomes orders of magnitude more imperative than it is in other stories. You cannot have a gun on the mantelpiece in Act 1 if it is not fired by Act 3. And if you fire a gun in Act 3, it had better have been on the mantelpiece in Act 1, or they're going to say you're Deus Ex Mechanicing your way out of and is a bad story. And because the story question is so obvious in a murder mystery, it's going to be who done it or how reveal it. Because some murder mysteries, you know who did it, and it's how's the detective going to solve it is the mystery. But the story question itself is so simple, and the scene question or the scene goal in these things is also going to be fairly simple. If you walk into a room and there's a dead man on the floor, the scene goal becomes figure out how the guy died. And I don't know that this is applicable in many other cases unless you're teaching a class on how to identify good and bad scene structure, cause and effect. And because, yeah, and even that could be a very good use for this. I don't know if it has any overarching things, but it was just something I noticed and I thought that I'd share with you. The classic English murder mystery, Sherlock Holmes, Agatha Christie, Louis L'Amour wrote several of those, is a very classic example of a stripped down version of storytelling, where the internal mechanics of it, the scene and structure, the technical writing becomes so important because you're not like Tolkien depending on creating a sense of awe and wonder. You're not like Lewis creating entire worlds of fantastic creatures. You're not like MacDonald where you're reaching in and touching something necessarily human in the soul of your reader. The murder mystery has a very simple purpose. It's like a fork. You know exactly how a fork works because you can look at it and see every single part. There's the handle, there's the tines. You know how they work. You can tell instantly if it's broken. And most murder mystery readers can tell instantly if it's a bad murder mystery, when it can be much more difficult for fantasy or romance novels. Although I'm sure for the lower class of romance novels, it gets similar treatment. But yeah, so here is my thesis. The classic English murder mystery is such a simplified, stripped down form of storytelling that the basic technical elements of scene and structure, cause and effects, scene and sequence, action, reaction are so well developed, it's like almost like having the skeleton bear before you. And so, if for any teachers out there or anybody offering a class or trying to build their storytelling, finding classically good murder mysteries, the best of Agatha Christie, the best of Sherlock Holmes, these are excellent subjects to lay out on your mental dissecting table to figure out what works and what doesn't. What is good cause and effect? What is bad cause and effect? What is Deus Ex Machina? What isn't? Where do you put Chekhov's gun? How early in the story? And how you maintain scene flow and keep people's attention. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Is the classic English murder mystery an excellent tool for helping you build your understanding of how the technical aspect of writing works? Or was this just a spurious comparison that I made during my last writing group? Hit that like and subscribe button. Tell me what you think in the comments below below the video. And peace out, my wonderful viewers.
Escape into another world with the writings of author Betty Adams. Two worlds, one of utter absurdity, one of dramatic tension, both alike in aliens absolutely astounded by human behavior. Humans are weird, short, absurd science fiction stories. Flying sparks, dragons, aliens, and things that go boom in the night.
Books available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and at authorBettyAdams.com for a signed copy.